welcome to my little talk of the future of food and ag in the San Luis Valley. If you don't know me, I'm Jay Sanders. I have been a food sovereignty advocate for the past 15 years. I worked in northern New Mexico. I was out in Sonoma County, California for a while, back to Taos, New Mexico, and now for the last 4 years, I've been residing in Saguache County. I have been helping with the San Luis Valley Seed Exchange since 2019. And if you haven't been, that happens at Joyful Journey in the spring. It's a free 2-day event of education around seed saving, around food security, and really the goal of that is to inspire and educate people to grow more food. And then 3 years ago, I was really fortunate to land a job with the San Luis Valley Local Foods Coalition, specifically to conduct a food and agricultural assessment of the San Luis Valley. And that is all 6 counties of the valley. So we wrapped up that assessment a year and a half ago. And what we're doing after that, that was phase 1 of a 3-phase project. So phase 1 was what are the needs of the community? Phase 2 is what I'm in the middle of right now, and that is creating a strategic plan for our food and ag systems and everybody that's involved in those of the 6 counties of the valley. And after that, implementation is phase 3, and that will take the next 10 years. I'm only funded for 2 or 3 more years to work on implementation. We'll keep working on that, but I know I'm going to be doing that for that amount of time. So anyway, I'm really it's really important to me to make sure that people understand what is involved with food and ag in the valley and to be as much a part of the food system as they can. So what I want to do today, I don't have a whole lot of examples. Our strategic plan is not finished. We are at the very end stages of it. And so what I wanted to do was just talk about where we're at and what I think is really exciting coming out of this plan. And then I'm going to open it up to just talk to you guys about it because I could talk for an hour, but it's not going to be as much fun as answering questions. So I'm going to just kind of briefly go over how we got here. And it was a lot of community engagement. This was a community-driven plan. It wasn't just the Local Foods Coalition deciding what the issues were. We spent 2 years engaging community for the assessment, and we asked, what's working well in your sector, what's not working well, and what's your vision for a thriving future? So that's kind of what we asked community, we asked producers, we asked food businesses, those things, and landed on this needs assessment. And I didn't bring it with me, but it's a nice published report. You can find it online. I can tell you how to get there if you want to read that. We also conducted a survey. We had a survey out for producers, a survey for food businesses, and a survey for community members. We had over 1,100 surveys taken and returned to us. So that's how we collected some of the data for that assessment. We also leaned on other data. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture does an ag census. So we looked at, ag census data for the valley from them. And like I said, we went out and talked to community members and folks for a couple of years. So once that got wrapped up, the next phase was taking that information that we found in the assessment back out to community members and asking them, okay, based on this, where do we want to go? Now is the time to really share your best and brightest ideas. And we started by conducting focus groups. And we held about 9 focus groups with specific groups. So community gardens, school nutrition service directors, farmers, ranchers, food pantries, people who attended farm tours that I was on, my own staff at the Local Foods Coalition employs about 30 people. And also we talked to a bunch of groups. There's one more. I have a steering committee also that's been very involved in this. That consists of about 30 people who have come in and out over the years and help guide this work. It's not just me, it's not just the Local Foods Coalition who is determining what we're doing. It is that steering committee, and that is made up of farmers, ranchers, food businesses, directors of other nonprofits around the valley, and just interested community members who care about this. So we kind of looked at what we held those focus groups, and then we also conducted about 11 interviews with, again, hand-selected people, farmers, ranchers, food businesses, people who are kind of in the know of the food system. And through those interviews and focus groups, we collected 300 ideas. I said, let's not worry about how it's going to happen. What do you want to see? And we're looking at policy change. We're looking at infrastructure change. We're looking at systematic change that's going to produce long-term sustainable systems for our valley. So I didn't know what policy systems and environment change was when I got started doing this, but I've learned that it's different than programs or projects or events that may only last as long as the organizer is interested in doing that thing. And then when somebody wants to step back, the whole program falls apart. And we've seen that happen a lot, particularly during COVID. Farm to school programs that were happening are just gone across the valley because so much staff turnover happened. So when you work on policy systems and environment change, that is going to create this deeper grounded change. It's not going to disappear when people move. Or, a thing isn't funded for a year or two, the policy will still be in place. So those were the questions we were asking. What can we do? We had 300 ideas given to us. And then I said, wow, we can't put 300 ideas in an action plan. And so we took those ideas back to our steering committee. We kind of worked them over, and we ended up seeing that they all fit into these 4 buckets that you're going to see on these posters. And I'm not interested in reading everything on the posters, but we landed on these 4 goals, and we divided all these ideas up into these objectives. So these are our community-centric goals, and these are producer-centric goals. It just sort of landed that way. And yeah, everything fit really nicely within education and engagement, or within food access, or within opportunities for producers, or within environmental stewardship. So those are the 4 main sections of our action plan. These are the 4 goals that the community said they really wanted to see happen. And so food access is a big one. And I'm not gonna get into all of the objectives. I just want to talk about some of the things that I found most exciting in this stuff, because like I said, there was 300 ideas. We've narrowed it down to 66. It's still a whole lot of actions to happen. Yeah, it's still a whole lot of actions. And it's not just the Local Foods Coalition who's going to be implementing this plan. I've gone through with our steering committee, and we kind of said, who could do this work? And so I've got, names next to all of those items, and it's 87 organizations and people and municipalities and county governments that now my work will be for the next 6 months to a year to get them involved. And I'm going to take those things and say, hey, is this something you want to do? Can you do this? And then really sign them up for it. It's like they're tentatively signed up, but not really. Anyhow, one of the big issues, who lives in the valley here? Oh, not a whole lot of you. Okay. Well, is getting groceries easy for you? No. Right. And I live out in unincorporated Saguache County. The nearest place I can buy groceries is 15 minutes, but that's like at a gas station. And so it's 45 minutes to Alamosa or to Salida where the stores are. There is 15 communities throughout the San Luis Valley that don't have grocery stores. So these are places that people live, whether it's in a town or not. I don't live in a town, that there's no groceries. And there's a bunch of folks that have issues with transportation, because maybe they don't have a car, or they're elderly and they just don't leave their house. So one of the things that has come up is a mobile market. We do have food pantries around the place, And I will say the Local Foods Coalition doesn't do food pantry work. We have great food banks that do that work. We support them, but we're not going to take over providing free food to folks. So this mobile market, it's happened in other places. It's not happening out here. And that would be, my fantasy is that some entrepreneur, some organization, if you are out here, let me know, would like to get a truck or a bus and turn that into a little grocery retail space that will go park in Moffett every Friday at the same time, same time, same place every week. So I know I can go there, and get my groceries. And that truck could go around the whole valley and service a whole bunch of people, and I think that is a much easier ask than expecting a brick and mortar store to show up in Moffett with the electrical cost, the distribution issues, the employee cost. So yeah, instead of creating brick and mortar stores all over the valley, let's just have a truck go around, and we can be working on that. And I also want to plug that. A whole nother piece of my work is helping food retailers like the Elephant Cloud and the Crestone Mercantile, locally owned grocery stores, access money that the state has right now. And so now that we've kind of hit all the stores that exist, there's only a handful of locally owned grocery stores in the San Luis Valley. We've saturated that. Our next bit of work is to create new retailers out of businesses that are already operating and just getting them to carry some groceries. So, for example, Joyful Journey Hot Springs carries a few grocery items already. They could be carrying a few more and actually be a good spot. There's places all over the valley that are like that. So part of my team's work is to be going out and helping develop new little retail outlets. So mobile market is a really exciting one. And but it's going to take nobody so far stepping up to jump on that opportunity. But this is going to be the work, is looking for those folks who are interested. So let me know if you are. Another thing that has came up under the food access piece is really working on creating, who's familiar with Farm to School? Got kids in school maybe. So Farm to School, there's two ways you go about it. One is just getting kids engaged in learning how to grow food, getting them into gardens and teaching them that way. And so that's curriculum-based education for kids. The other way Farm to School can operate is it's a whole nother side of it, is coming in, talking to the buyers at the schools and getting local food into the schools. And that, that's part of what really kind of fell apart during COVID. And so a whole lot of work needs to be done around that. So one of the things that it's been suggested to rebuild those relationships is by creating advisory committees of parents who are really interested. It's one thing for an organization to work with a school board, but it's going to be a whole nother thing if the parents of the children that go to those schools are actually really involved in that. And, I think we all know that when we're hungry, we're not going to learn very well. And there is a lot of child food insecurity in this valley. Costilla County is 24% food insecurity for kids. And so the schools might be the only place they're really getting an opportunity to eat a good meal. And the work's being done all over the place around that. But that's a thing that the Local Foods Coalition is wanting to step back up to and work on farm to school programs and get them really going. And it's probably not going to be across the board. It's probably going to be in whichever school we find the most traction with parents and with the nutrition directors that want to work with us. Definitely want to do it across the valley, but I'm interested right now in the low-hanging fruit. Where are we going to make the greatest impact the quickest? So, developing the mobile market, farm to school, parent advisory committees. Oh, the other really big thing that producers really needed and that has come up is value-added processing in the valley. Do y'all know what value-added processing is? So, we grow a bunch of potatoes here, and those potatoes get on trucks and they just leave. So they're sold at the that's the lowest amount of money we're going to get for those potatoes just as a commodity out the valley, versus if there was a processing facility here to take those potatoes, process them. We'd have jobs around that. We create value. And then also if we package them and sold them and distributed them directly out of this valley, you create vertical integration, and the valley would be capturing so much more of the dollar from those potatoes that are then sold on the shelves. And I wish I had slides. I have a really great illustration of where your dollar goes when you buy food. Have y'all seen this food dollar breakdown? So there's probably 30 different entities that are getting a bit of your dollar when you go buy a bag of chips. The retailer is getting a quarter of that dollar. The farmer is getting 14 cents of that dollar. And so part of what we're really interested in doing is how can we quit letting all of that money leave our valley and our economy here and capture it, keep it here, and put more of that money back in our producers' pockets. Yeah. Yeah, I have a great illustration. I just can't show you around that. But and I've got to plug that what happens when you go to a farmer's market and you buy some food, how much of the dollar does the farmer keep? 100% of it. So it's a really big thing. And they were just talking about, local food economy stuff over there. And it's a really big deal to be putting our money where we want where we want it to be. And I'm very much into supporting our local grocery stores, but we also really got to be supporting our local producers. If our producers aren't supported now, they are not going to be here in 10 years. And I don't know who you want controlling our food system. I don't know who you trust to feed you. But for me, it's not corporations. It is Kyla Brown. It is Sarah Jones. It's those folks that I have relationships with. And we can all have relationships with farmers here. They're accessible. They're everywhere. So just got to plug that it's a big deal. And we can do it here. Our farmers are very accessible. So back to value-added processing and what is exciting. As much as we have potatoes, nobody's really too interested in doing potato processing. We need USDA certified meat processing out here. We used to have it. We don't need more. So our cows leave the valley, get processed somewhere else, and most of those farmers or those ranchers aren't reselling their own meat. They sell their cattle at auction. Yeah.
Do you know why they stopped the USDA processing?
It's expensive. So yeah, why is USDA processing not happening? Well, first, all of our meat processors are very small. And they do custom stuff for people. And the last person that was doing it just said, you know what, it takes that guy paying USDA $100,000 a year to have that certifier on site. And he was like, I don't need that. I have enough other custom processing I'm doing. I don't need to pay this guy. So now our ranchers here have to take their cattle somewhere else, or they just sell them at auction. So we're losing a lot of money that way too. There are two places, I will say, two small processors that are working on getting their USDA certification. One of us has been working on it for 6 years. So it's really tough out here with the scale that things are at. But what is happening is there is a bakery out of Monte Vista, Tumbleweed Bread. One of the owners of Tumbleweed is working on a grain and bean processing and packaging facility, as well as SLV branded grain and bean products. So this is a 10-year plan. This facility, if it happens at all, it's probably not going to happen for 5 to 10 years. But he's looking around at the landscape. We have to quit using as much water on our crops. Who caught the talk just a minute ago with Sarah and Devon? And so what they're talking about is, rye. So rye is this great grain that uses a fraction of the water most of the other cover crops are using, uses a fraction of the water alfalfa is using. So Jake from Tumbleweed Bread sees this, and he sees, like, if we could be putting more money into low water grain production and bean production, we'd be creating high value, nutrient dense food for our community, and we'd be able to package that, distribute it. We have plenty of acreage here to do it. And then be distributing out of the San Luis Valley instead of importing all of our foods back in. So I'm really excited about the potential, this long-term project of grain and bean happening. And that's so at this moment, the best potential for value-added processing. Hemp stuff is underway. I know that people have gone back and forth on doing hemp, whether it's seed production for food, whether it's fiber production for textiles, whether it's hurd and hempcrete material for building. There's a lot of things we could do with hemp. Hemp is a decent low water crop that grows really well out here. The reason we're not growing much of it is because there is no market, because there's no processing really in the country on any scale yet. But we could be doing it here. Again, who is the entity, who is the entrepreneur that wants to start these facilities? And if you are one of them, come talk to me later. I'm going to pause and just see if y'all have any questions or comments. Yeah. People are using hempcrete. There's Formation Ag out in Monte Vista who develops new equipment for hemp processing. They are not making hempcrete here, but they develop equipment for cutting it and doing some of the things. And I've talked to them recently, and they want a facility here, but economically, it's not looking like the direction they want to go in right now. So it's tricky. Yeah.
Being a state employee, although I don't work for the economic arm, has there been any reaching out to them to figure out, because I think they have some money.
To the state?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am working closely with the Department of Agriculture. They have a lot of programs, though, and there's stuff that I still discover. I'm like, wow, how did I not know about that one? The state does offer a lot of programs, incentives, tax credits, and grants for certain things, but it's Yeah, but it's still a matter of who's the person that wants to start the business that then I can connect to that department at the state. Because it's one thing to have the ideas, but if no one's willing to spearhead that project, and that's where we're at, and that's what this plan is full of, is a whole bunch of ideas, and I'm not sure who's going to do them. So we're looking. I mean, I know who's going to do some of it, but not all of it. Another thing oh yeah, go ahead. The Ruby Rose. Sarah Jones is here. That's Sarah's building, and Angelica is running the Ruby Rose bakery cafe part of it, and then the other half is kind of empty. I'm told that they do want to start selling food out of there. Don't know where they're at with that, but it's I think there's a potential, and it's just time, because Sarah's busy running a farm and the Rye Resurgence Project. So, okay. What are the potential markets for rye besides flour? You should talk to Sarah. But they are, so animal feed, not so much, because I don't think that pays nearly what humans want to pay to eat food. Alcohol is a big one. She's really into having folks use the grain to distill into alcohol. But as a flour, It's just it's a very versatile flour that you can make all sorts of things with. And I will say again, it does not taste like rye bread. That is the caraway seed that they add to rye bread. So if you're interested in supporting the rye movement out here, find rye flour and experiment with it because it doesn't really have any flavor. Yeah. So another thing that I'm hoping that the Local Foods Coalition will very likely do out of this action plan is do a pretty serious asset mapping project of where are the school gardens that are functional and non-functional, where are the community gardens that are functional or not functional, where are the greenhouses that may be perfect for vegetable production that nobody's using, and there's a lot of infrastructure that exists out here. Where are the commissary kitchens? A whole bunch of people said they really would love to be using commissary kitchens and producing their own value-added products in there, and they don't know where they're at. And I only know where a few of them are at. So conducting this big asset map and then putting it together is going to be a piece of our work going forward. We already do produce the Local Roots Guide. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's a directory of where you can buy local foods in the Valley and the surrounding counties. And I think we're working on our next iteration because it's 4 years old. We publish one every 3 or 4 years. This next one will include where are all the local food banks and pantries, where are the community gardens, and that sort of a thing.
So where would we find something like that?
In my car. I have a bunch in my car. It's online, but it's a printed directory that Succeed won't have it. The Local Foods Coalition will. I have cards and some things here. We had them all over the place, but since it's old and we're working on producing a new one, they're not widely distributed right now. They are at our office in Alamosa. Our office is on State Street in Alamosa, right up from Milagros Coffee Shop. We have them there, and they're kind of around. But if you want one, I have some in my car.
So it seems like there's a missing element, like especially here in Saguache County, one of the poorest median income counties in the country. So like my wife and I, we go get our garlic from Mountain Garlic, we go get our animal feed down in the center. You know, we have these little places that we bring all of our product in that we want to consume and work with. But when I talk to friends and family that are, living off of $30,000 a year, and they eat like a caprese salad or something that we make, like, oh wow, this is so amazing. Why is this so good? They're like, oh well, this like these tomatoes that we got from so and so. Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna go check it out. And then like a $5 tomato is just totally inaccessible. So even some of these ideas of value-added products, where we're taking things from local producers, someone needs to buy them. So how do we support that, like bridging that gap? You can make the food available, but if people can't afford the food, and then if I want to make sauerkraut, I can't survive pocket sauerkraut unless City Market goes away and I can't buy a can of sauerkraut.
So it's really like the affordability that here's what's so upside down is why does what's grown locally that didn't travel across the country cost more? And it's because the Farm Bill subsidizes commodity corn and soybeans. So this is a big, big policy thing. And yeah, our most of our food system is subsidized, and that's why you can go buy a bag of chips or Cheetos or whatever that's super cheap, because your tax dollars you're paying for farmers to grow that stuff. So there's major work on a federal level that unfortunately I'm not working on that level, and I also want to make this caveat. I said we're working on policy change. Not even at the state level. Local Foods Coalition is working San Luis Valley level, so it is county and municipality level that we're working on. a whole bunch of stuff came up in our plan around people wanted to see changes at the state and federal level. It's like, I've noted it. We're going to publish those ideas, but I can't work on that. So, yeah, it's a really tricky thing. A lot of people in this valley don't make enough money to afford to shop at our local grocery stores and buy the local food. So that's why I'm encouraging people to grow their own and to support a community garden. So it may be more of a work trade situation. And the other really upside down thing is loads of people say they want more community gardens and they want to be involved with that. And then the day comes for people to show up and 2 people show up. And the people that wanted those community gardens really just wanted the food from the community garden, but the work to put in it's a whole nother thing. And that was touched on over here at this other talk. We want convenience. And convenience is going to eat away at our health eventually. And so I think it's a real matter of, and I know what it's like to only be able to like shop at Walmart. So it's a real tricky balance to make, you know, my long-term health versus what I can afford right now. But I think part of that is people, if you really want to support the producers here and our food system here, pick a couple of things that you want to buy. And to me, beef and the meat is sort of the easiest one. It doesn't actually cost that much more than what you pay at the store. And if you can just make one shift with your dollar, and like Nick Chambers and Liza always say, like, we vote 3 times a day for the food system we want by the food that we're purchasing. And just keep in mind that if we keep giving Walmart our dollars, they're going to be there and Elephant Cloud won't be. So it is a tricky balance, and I don't know what to do about the affordability. I'm very interested, and it came up in the 300 ideas we collected, that we should be the state should be subsidizing local food production. And I absolutely think so. Our county commissioners could potentially do that. That is something I want to work on. But that's it's a very big bear. And it is really upside down that a local tomato costs way more than a California tomato. Shouldn't be that way. But it's because for hasn't even been 100 years that convenience and quick food and people not being in their kitchens has been the trend. And I think we've all seen what that's done to our economy, our environment, our health, and it's going to take individuals deciding to do something a little bit different. And I'm interested in working on the bigger systematic change that needs to happen, but it also is going to take all of us choosing something different. I'm going to give this, because I don't think y'all are going to... Here.
So I live in Southwest New Mexico in a very similar situation, very similar valley. I'm 35 minutes from the local grocery store. There is a Walmart in town, and really poor county, lots of elderly people, our ag, like the farmers don't have the money. It's the vicious cycle that you're talking about. And I'm wondering, where does the piece come in? So I also own a bookkeeping company, so I help people with their business finances. Is there anything that you guys are doing to help the farmers? Our farmers are exhausted and also can't pay their bills. You know what I mean? Like, it's a huge, gorgeous valley with water and they're all working so hard. Like, is there a piece that you guys are working on to help the farmers with the money? I know you said state, getting the state and the county commissioners and things helping the farmers, but what more are you doing to help the farmers and the...
Good question. So the program the Local Foods Coalition has 4 primary programs, and the one that I work in is it is that resource navigation piece. And so part of what I do is, I work with the Department of Ag. On behalf of them, I do outreach and technical assistance for producers here. So there are a lot of programs that folks out here don't know about that we are helping connect them to. I'm not going to do their taxes and do all their bookkeeping, but helping them navigate what they need is a whole that's my whole department's job, is that resource navigation piece. And one of the things that came out of the assessment and action plan were that a lot of, let's say you're a baker and you're a really good baker, but that doesn't mean you're a good bookkeeper, a good marketer, good at the rest of the business. And so business classes and business mentorship for those farmers, bakers, producers is a big piece of what we are working on. And so that's going to be, sometimes I'm the first person a farmer comes to looking for help. And so I'm building a relationship with the Small Business Development Center, SBDC. I'm building a relationship with SLV Extension Services. So when I cross these producers, I can go help connect them to the right people and not just give them a hey, here's a website, but like I can give them the number and name of the person to go talk to that can support them. So that's part of what we're doing, is really our job is supporting the producers and food businesses of the Valley access the resources they need. And there's some grants and tax credits that I'm very familiar with and some that I'm not, but I have a list of people, and when they come to me and they say, hey, I've a list of producers that are like, I need this type of processing equipment. Is there anything out there for that? We will go hunt it down and like try to find that and connect them to those resources, because they need they're so busy running their operations. Who's got the time to read through 10 grant RFPs and see if they qualify?
So are there cooperative groups, like someone's producing but they're not good at marketing, but someone's good at marketing but they don't have the skills to produce? Are we getting those people together and having them work cooperatively?
Not necessarily. No, and but that's sort of stuff that has been coming out of this. So beyond producers, I will say when we convened a focus group of food pantries, I invited all the food pantries of the Valley, and half of them showed up on this Zoom, and they had never talked before. And these food pantry volunteers and directors getting together in the same room and sharing their challenges and their solutions, they were like, oh my gosh, this was so helpful. Will you please keep bringing us together? So that's one of the things that the Local Foods Coalition is going to do now, is convene, a monthly or quarterly, food pantry, just talk for them, and then potentially produce documents or standard operating procedures that they need. Food pantries liked that, and then also community gardeners wanted that. The producers have not told me that, but there are a lot of supports for producers out here, and conferences kind of very much geared towards them. And it's interesting to also not be stepping on any other organization's foot or be getting in the way or duplicating efforts is a thing I'm really not interested in doing. So one of our jobs is really like building relationships with the other organizations and entities around and knowing what's going on. So we're working very collaboratively and cohesively rather than everyone running off doing the same thing but in different directions.
So one time I remember talking to somebody in Levita who grew up there, and it's years ago, and her father was on the school board, and she said, well, my father made sure that the school bought beef from this person, and he kind of rotated around the community to buy school food for. And one of the things, and I think, I'm not quite sure if it's changing it at the state level, and it may have happened because of the federal lunch program, but, now schools have to go out to bid. And, if you're a small producer, so of course, who's going to win a bid? Cisco. And so if we could change the sort of procurement code so that things like schools, like maybe, still have a procurement code, but you get 10 extra points if you're local, and I don't know how easy it is to make those policy changes, but that would go. That would have a big impact on schools because they purchase a lot of food.
Yeah, so you are talking about institutional buying, and that is a big piece also of what my program is tasked to be dealing with, whether it's schools, hospitals, or jails. Those are the places that buy the most amount of food and here and feed people. The universities, and so yeah, and I think that's I don't know if it's a state. I think it's a school district thing. And so that's where we're about to really amp up once I'm going to get this plan published and finished. And then that work will be really talking to the schools and finding out what it is they need. And part of it is, schools would be happy to buy local meat, but it has to be USDA certified. And, there's just issues with that. And not every rancher has that out here. And I mean, I think George right over there had a contract with a school and had all this meat ready to go, and then the school changed a contract to somebody else. So there's some really interesting. There's a lot of work to do, but that institutional procurement is something that we are definitely about to get to work on. And along those lines, we were tasked with this year doing a producer to buyer networking event. And that is, I'm planning it right now. It'll probably happen in the end of November, beginning of November, where I'm going to invite local grocers, local restaurants, school nutrition directors who are buying food, and the producers that can produce on any scale, get them in the same room together and give them opportunity to meet, hear from each other. Like, how is, like, you know, a rancher's gonna say, okay, this is how much beef I can produce, this is what I can do this year, and the restaurant or the grocer's gonna say, this is how much I buy, and this is the conditions I need it in, and this is the size of box I need it in. So we're gonna be working to start shoring that up, and finding out from folks what it is they need, and hopefully making it much easier for people to access the food. So many people said, I want to buy local food and I don't know where to do it. Producers said, I want to sell into a local market and I don't know how to do it. And so it's like, okay, so that's part of what the Local Foods Coalition will be working on. Yeah.
Have you guys, inside of your grant funding and stuff, for the next phase, is it looking outside of the valley on other models that have worked, and then trying to say, this is a model that you might want to incorporate into it from a different community that's been able to solve some of those problems?
Yeah. And so now that we just recently landed on our 66 actions with 200 ways to do that. And so like the mobile market is an example. People have done mobile markets in other places, and part of what my team's job is now to go look at that, talk to the directors of those, find out what's worked well, what hasn't worked, and then replicate those things. Also with farm to school and institutional buying, people are doing it. So much of it really though is about the relationships that that like individuals have here and building those relationships. And so like I said, when staff turns over, the relationships and that thing can just fall apart that easily. So baking in some better systems of holding on. So when the Local Foods Coalition can hold on to the relationships when I leave, and aren't dependent solely on me, but it really is a like person to person relationship thing. And things out here really move at the pace of trust. And trust takes a very long time to build with people. And so it's years of work for me to even get my foot in the school. And then, hopefully I can maintain that work over time. But yeah. Yeah.
With the mobile market, you were talking about finding someone, with the truck and do that. And then are you helping supply connect with farmers or
We'll see. I don't know yet. We're not that far along. What my real hope is that that truck would go straight to the Valley Roots Food Hub. Who here knows who the Valley Roots Food Hub is? Okay. So Valley Roots Food Hub is in Mosca. It is one of the programs of the Local Food Coalition. It is like the for-profit arm of the organization. They buy food from all over the state and, a little New Mexico, maybe like a little bit around, and then they redistribute it throughout the state. We've got trucks going to Denver, Colorado Springs, and then all over the valley. So there's a lot of customers of the Food Hub in the valley. They wholesale and they retail. So if any of you wanted to start buying local food and don't know where to do it or don't live near a grocery store, all you got to do is talk to the Food Hub. They give you get you a login to their website. It is all digital. And then you just go online and you shop. You place your order by 4 p.m. on Monday. They then tell Brian or somebody that is growing the food, hey, I need 20 heads of lettuce. That farmer goes out and harvests the lettuce Tuesday morning. It gets delivered to the Food Hub on Wednesday, and Thursday they are dropping that off at a drop site around the valley for you. So, there is stuff like pasta and beef that they may just have on hand, but all the produce is actually harvested to order. So they're not just buying, boxes of lettuce and sitting on it and hoping you order it. They order it after you've bought it. And so this is a short supply chain that we're dealing with here. But anyway, the Food Hub would be my first pick for that truck to go pick up food on and then, go sell it, because it's all local or regional and it's supporting the state's producers. And then, beyond that, dealing with smaller producers, I don't know, that's a whole nother can of worms. But our Food Hub is already doing that. They deal with some very small producers in our very local area here and are selling for them. And that is fresh, nutrient-dense food that we're getting through them. I've got 10 minutes. What else do you guys want to know? For the Food Hub to deliver? Well, like I said, they go to Denver. Yeah, we go to Denver every week. And they're, pulling up to the back of restaurants, the back of grocery stores, and unloading to them. But for consumer like us, who are just ordering some groceries, they treat it a little bit like a CSA. So they're going to throw everything in a box, and there are drop locations around the state. I don't know where the drop location is in Crestone, but I know there's one at Saguache Works in Saguache. So it's like they just go, they unload into a refrigerated space in Saguache. We've got them all over the area. So these are refrigerators. Then you get the code, you go in and you grab your box and you go. Yeah. Well, I want to invite you guys to, engage with this work. I want to tell you, we went out to 15 communities around the valley recently, taking those 300 ideas and these objectives and these goals and checking in and saying, hey, does this feel right? Is this something you want? And so community members helped us prioritize this. We were here, a few months ago at the charter school, and 20 some odd people showed up, and we went through this whole process of prioritizing those objectives. So we've done that 15 places around the valley this summer, and finished with that in-person outreach. If you want to get into any of this anymore, we're going to do 4 more community engagement sessions that are going to be virtual. So, because I know a lot of people just can't make it, we can't all make it to everything. So they are going to start September 22nd, I think, is hopefully a Monday. There's going to be, the first one is going to be, they're going to be per goal. So if you're really interested in the education and engagement piece with community members and you want to really dig into that work, attend that virtual session we do. It'll be 2 hours from like 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Zoom. And this is kind of the last pass of getting community input on that. And then we're going to do another one on food access and addressing food insecurity in the Valley. We'll do another one on producer opportunities, which really I'm going to suggest producers show up to that because community members tend to not have a whole lot of understanding of what producers are dealing with. And then environmental stewardship. So if you want to engage in any of those, come to all of them. And we'll give you $25 for attending each or one of them. So if you want to attend all four, you will end up with $100 at the end of that. And then that is sort of our last bit of community engagement before I have to shut it off, and we have to just really keep fine-tuning the language in this. And like I said, I'll be reaching out to other implementation partners to find out, get everybody to sign up to take these actions on, and really hoping to have this process done by before the end of the year. This should be published, and then we'll spend the next at least 1 to 2 years implementing it, if not well beyond. And I anticipate continuing to, I will be tracking all those projects and how they're going, and reporting out periodically on the progress of this action plan. We're calling it's the San Luis Valley Community Food and Ag Action Plan. It's a strategic plan, but I'm just calling it an action plan because it sounds a little less scary. And any other questions? Yeah.
What resources do you have for people interested in starting to grow their own food or raise their own animals without necessarily selling food out in the community? Is that kind of thing?
So San Luis Valley Seed Exchange is a good place to start. That our big event happened in April, but I'm glad you asked this question. We are helping promote a new seed exchange and harvest swap in Antonito in 2 weeks from today. So 2 weeks from today, Antonito on Main Street at their little water park. It's going to look a lot like the seed exchange that happens at Joyful. There's a full day of speakers and demonstrations around producing food. Seed swap. But then also, because it's September and things are in season, can actually swap vegetables. So this was my fantasy for a long time, and it's finally coming true because I have support down south to help it happen. But people are always giving away zucchinis and apples and all this stuff at this time of year. So let's get together and build community around food. So if you have any excess stuff, cut your flowers, harvest some seeds, your apples, whatever it is, take them down to Antonito and share them with folks. It's a completely free event. It's going to be, I think, 10 to 4, and there's going to be a salsa competition. And this is the first time this has ever happened down there like this. So first annual, we hope to keep doing it. And I hope that you guys can come and support that. So there's that. And then there's also that big part of our engagement and education component is a lot of folks want to just grow their own food, not as a commercial producer. So a lot of people already teach gardening and composting and food preservation and that stuff. So instead of Local Foods Coalition creating new curriculum around that, we are going to be helping market those other people that are doing it. So Colorado State University Extension of the Valley offers Master Gardener classes and food preservation and canning classes. So part of our job is going to be helping get the word out about that education that already exists. That was a big thing we found in the assessment is people wanted to learn all these things or know where this and this and this is or develop this. I'm like, well, these things already exist in the Valley. People just don't know about it. And so part of our job will be, again, that resource navigation, and I think doing marketing for other organizations to really help get the word out and get the community to know where these things are, because we don't need to start it all over again. Yeah.
So I have a sister who's really into food insecurity, and so she got a freeze dryer machine. And that's a great way to take the bounty of a harvest. But most of them, to get a good one, it's expensive. So is there any thought of doing a co-op where there's a freeze dryer that people could bring their produce to?
Where do you live?
She lives in Taos.
Where do you live though?
Well, I live part-time in Crestone and part-time in Albuquerque.
Okay. Well, here in Crestone, there is talk of a community center that would have that type of equipment. So, people are working on that here. And in Taos, we should talk because I'm from Taos. But it is really a matter of, and that's one of the things that came up is how can, like, there's a whole objective of developing innovative programs to help shore up food insecurity, and that is things like bulk buying together. So in my neighborhood, 10 of us could get together and order from UNFI. So we could be getting bulk oats and rice and whatever, and that just sort of takes organizing on an individual level. I'm considering whether or not the Local Foods Coalition should get involved in that, and I don't really think so. I think we can give the ideas and we can give some like links to here's where you can go do that. But there is a lot of sharing of resources that I think we can get way more creative about. But it's going to be, building the relationships with the other folks that want to do that, creating some entity or some way to share that equipment. So when the one person that, really spearheaded that goes away, the whole program doesn't fall apart. But, dehydrators and just canning together and processing food together is a really, really, it can be really useful and really impactful. And I think, for food insecurity on that just individual level, it's really, getting together with your neighbors and figuring out what it is you need yourself. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Is there any talk around here about doing that type of thing to reduce or I guess maybe reroute like food waste from some of the larger supermarkets, like the store in Salina or places like that, where they have a huge amount of food waste because it's just like it's the expiration date.
Yeah.
Things like that, yeah, like food rescue. That's all. To then
A lot of the grocery stores do donate to the pantry or to the food banks, so that is happening. And then there's a lot of people very interested in composting programs, and they were talking yesterday about the composting project that sort of happened here, but like couldn't keep animals out of it, and it just like did not work out. So and there's Elements Compost out of Salida that does consumer level, like household composting. They have a household composting program, but then it did get brought up multiple times, and it is in our plan of how can we actually redirect rotten potatoes, like so there's a lot of potato warehouses and grain production out here, and some of those, some of that stuff could get composted, but actually a lot of it could go into animal feed. And then that would save the ranchers a whole lot of money on inputs. And so shoring up and so reducing food waste is a big piece of work to be done. And people are discussing how that can happen. And it just, there's these different levels of scale that it happens on. So households are one thing. Grocery stores and food businesses in town are another scale and level, and then there's the industrial level and like Safeway, Walmart level stuff. And I do think that they donate as much as they can to the banks, but I'm not sure who's working on really making sure none of that goes into the waste stream, but it should be a high priority. Okay, well, I think that is all the time we have. If you would like to be notified when we are doing these virtual sessions, I have a little sign-up sheet here. So please sign up. I've got business cards, and I can go grab some local roots guides out of my car for you guys if you want. But thanks a whole lot.